Hi dear children, today I am going to explain the development of male gametophyte in plants. Already it was explained in one video, but this is the single topic in detail I am explaining, and I hope it will be very helpful for you. So let us start. So children, this is the structure of the pollen grain already we studied. We have to see how the male gametophyte is formed. The nucleus in the pollen grain undergo mitotic division, and as a result two daughter cells are formed, larger vegetative cell and the smaller generative cell. The arrangement is that the smaller generative cell is floating in the larger vegetative cell and they are of spindle shape. Vegetative cell is stored with high reserve food materials and they are having a dense cytoplasm. Now the next step is the indine wall, which is the inner wall, will form or protrude out through the germ pore to form a pollen tube. That is, the indine wall is forming a pollen tube which come out through the germ pore. Then the next step is the two nuclei, that the vegetative nuclei and generative nuclei, move into the pollen tube. You can see that in the picture. The next is the vegetative nuclei undergo second mitotic division, that is the second time mitosis division, and two male gametes are formed. Now in the pollen tube you can see two male gametes and one vegetative nucleus. Vegetative nucleus is also called as tube nucleus because they control now the function of the pollen tube. So altogether this pollen tube with two male gamete and vegetative nucleus is called as a male gametophyte. Next we have to know when does this pollination happens. Pollination happens in two ways or two times. In 60% of angiosperms, pollination happens at two cell stage. The two cell stages when pollen grain undergo first mitotic division, they divide into vegetative and generative cell. Immediately after that, pollen will get shed and they undergo the pollination process. Now let us see how it happens. The pollen grain with the two cells, they fall over the stigma, and after that they absorb the protein from the stigma through the germ pore. As a result, the vegetative cell enlarge their size. Then as a pollen tube formation, indine wall forms the pollen tube, and after that vegetative cell and the generative cell nucleus move into the pollen tube. Then the generative cell divides mitotically to form two male gametes. So finally the pollen tube is with vegetative cell nucleus and two male gamete cells. So that is the male gametophyte. Pollen grain with the pollen tube nucleus and with the vegetative cell nucleus and the two male gametophyte cells together form the male gametophyte. Okay. So in short children, when does this pollination happen? In two cell stage, that is when generative and vegetative cell is formed, the pollination happens in certain plants. Their pollen tube and gametes are formed only after pollination. Whereas in certain angiosperm, about 40% of angiosperm, it's in three-celled stage pollination happens. Three-celled stage means pollen tube and gametes are formed before pollination. Here the three cells are the pollen grain with the pollen tube and the two male gamete cells. Only after the formation of all these things, pollination happens in 40% of angiosperm. Okay, already I have told the process, how the pollen tube is formed, how the male gametophyte is formed. So I hope it is clear to you now. Read once again and it will make it very thorough. Okay.